I wear boots and beads, bags and braids, sticks and stones, razor shades. Walk in the light of the moon, but I never met a Batman. African, call him Black Man. It's the Way Left Podcast, everybody. I'm your co-host, Kevin K-Dog Phillips. My co-host will be joining me shortly. Changing up the format just a little bit. A little dinner before the dessert, you might want to say. Bear with us as we continue to work on the podcast and get it in its proper format with the proper content. We definitely want to continue to go way left, but I also want to make sure that, we're talking about things that are relevant and important. I'm a Black nationalist. Said it before, I'll say it every week from this point on. I'm an unapologetic Black nationalist, and I speak on Black nationalism in my spare time. On that note, this is a lot. I know this is a lot. This is a lot. I'm probably, you know what? Ain't no probably. I'm just go ahead and just derobe a little bit, get a little more cool and comfortable, because I got a lot going on with all the clothes. Okay, so in 2010, I wrote and published, along with some others, I had help, what was called the New Being newsletter. Okay, so it's NU-BEING. And I did this for about 2 years, wrote articles and put those articles out. I'm actually skipping ahead a little bit. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. Today is June 17th, not depending on. Juneteenth has always been, historically, a week-long celebration. Okay, it's always been week-long. So it would start anywhere from the 13th and run to the 19th or somewhere in between. But it wasn't a day. We celebrate on the 19th as a federal holiday, which apparently we're going to lose, if you want to call it a loss, or if you want to call it something that they gave. I don't consider them having given us anything in terms of Juneteenth. Juneteenth here in the South, where I'm currently in Durham, North Carolina, has always been celebrated, vigorously celebrated. Everyone else sort of coming into the fold or becoming aware of it, it's been down here for years. So if they, quote unquote, take away the holiday, you can take the holiday, you can't take the celebration. Okay, that's what I'll say on that. So happy Juneteenth. I wrote a number of articles in the New Being newsletter. They were all focused on Black nationalism. There were some other things in there like book reviews and things like that I wanted guys to read, Black people to read, Black music that can listen to. I wrote I actually didn't write it, but it's a pretty good article written on the Wake Up album done by John Legend and The Roots. So if you haven't checked out that album, it's pretty old now, but it's a great album if you've never heard it. But the article that I wanted to take a look at today it was called, You've Heard of Slave Result and Abolition, but have there's a typo in here, but have you read the Confessions of Nat Turner? My first question is going to be, have you ever heard of Nat Turner? Now, most of you have, I would imagine, and a lot of us saw the movie, that biopic pic of sorts. It was really a biopic pic on just slavery, but it was supposed to be, it should have been, a biopic film on Nat Turner, and it never really accomplished that. The movie was pretty bad. Not even going to mention the name. It's just a bad movie. But Nat Turner, before his insurrection, before his slave revolt, before he was executed, he confessed. He confessed his, I can't call it a crime. When you confess, you usually think in terms of crime. I'm confessing my crimes. I can't call it a crime, but he confessed. He confessed to a white man by the name of Thomas Gray. And I, I thought about pulling up the confession on my computer, and that's what I should have did, because when I wrote this in 2010, I had 20/20 vision. And now I sit here not with 20/20 vision, and the font on this is very, very small, extremely small. Now, this is the article that I wrote, and the font is very small, but the full confession of Nat Turner's slave revolt is available online. You can read it, the entire thing. He confessed the entire thing to a man by the name of Thomas Gray. He, according to Thomas Gray, fully and voluntarily gave his confession on November 5th, 1831. Gray writes, agreeable to his own appointment on the evening he was committed to prison, with permission of the jailer, I visited Nat on Tuesday, the 1st November, when, without being questioned at all, he commenced his narrative in the following words. And Nat Turner then said, sir, these are excerpts. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Sir, you have asked me to give a history of the motives which induced me to undertake the late insurrection, as you call it, for which I am about to atone at the gallows, meaning he's going to be hung. Nat Turner was later eaten after he was killed on the gallows. I was 31 years of age the 2nd of October last, and born the property of Benji Turner, my master, who belonged to the church. Other religion persons who visited the house, noticing the singularity of my manners and my uncommon intelligence for a child, remarked I had too much sense to be raised, and if I was, I would never be of any service to anyone as a slave. Now, finding I had arrived to man's estate and was a slave, and these revelations being made known to me, I began to direct my attention to this great object, to fulfill the purpose for which by this time I felt assured I was intended. About this time I was placed under an overseer from whom I ran away. And after remaining in the woods 30 days, I returned, to the astonishment of the Negroes on the plantation, who thought I had made my escape to some other part of the country, as my father had done before. Apparently his father escaped. Let's continue. But the reason of my return was that the Spirit appeared to me and said, I had my wishes directed to the things of this world and not to the kingdom of heaven, and that I should return to the service of my earthly master. For he who knoweth his master's will and doeth not shall be beaten with many stripes. And thus have I chastised you. That's a quote from the Bible, quoting the Bible there. And the Negroes found fault and murmured against me, saying that if they had my sense, they would not serve any master in the world. I communicated the great work laid out to me to do, to four in whom I had the greatest confidence. Okay, so let me just clarify that. He's basically saying there that he's going to communicate his plans for a slave revolt to 4 men. Those 4 men were Henry, Nelson, and Sam. It was intended by us to have begun the work of death on the 4th July last, meaning last year. Many were the plans formed and rejected by us, and it affected my mind to such a degree that I fell sick, and the time passed without coming to any determination how to commence on Saturday evening. The 20th of August, it was agreed between Henry, Hark, and myself to prepare a dinner the next day for the men we expected, and then to concert a plan, as we had not yet determined any. I saluted them on coming up and asked Will how came he there, Old English, I guess. He answered, his life was worth no more than others, and his liberty is dear to him. I asked him if he thought to obtain it. He said he would, or lose his life. It was quickly agreed we would. Let me read that again. I saluted them on coming up and asked Will, how came he here? Meaning, how did you come to be here? He answered, his life was worth no more than others, and his liberty is dear to him. I asked him if he thought to obtain it. He said he would or lose his life. It was quickly agreed we would commence at home, Mr. J. Travis, on that night, and until we had armed and equipped ourselves and gathered sufficient force, neither age nor sex was to be spared, which was invariably adhered to. On returning to the house, Hark went to the door with an axe for the purpose of breaking it open, as we knew we were strong enough to murder the family if they were awaked by the noise. But reflecting that it might create an alarm in the neighborhood, we determined to enter the house secretly and murder them while sleeping. Call it murder because it's a homicide. I don't know if I would necessarily call it murder. Hart got a ladder and set it against the chimney, on which I ascended, and hoisting a window, entered and came downstairs, unbarred the window and removed the guns from their places. It was then observed that I must spill the first blood, on which, armed with a hatchet and accompanied by Will, I entered my master's chamber. It being dark, I could not give a death blow. The hatchet glanced from his head. He sprang from the bed and called his wife. It was his last word. Will laid him dead with a blow of his axe, and Mrs. Travis shared the same fate as she lay in bed. We remained some time at the barn where we paraded. I formed them in a line as soldiers, and after carrying them through all the maneuvers I was master of, marched them off to Mr. I can't say the first name, but Mr. Francis, about 600 yards distant. Sam and Will went to the door and knocked. Mr. Francis asked who was there. Sam replied it was him, and he had a letter for him, on which he got up and came to the door. They immediately seized him, dragging him out little from the door. He was dispatched by repeated blows on the head. There was no other white person in the family. We started from there, from Mrs. Reeves, maintaining the most perfect silence on our march. Okay. The rest of the story goes something like this. Nat Turner only managed to kill one person. As they marched through the countryside, Nat Turner killed a small child, a female girl. Will, Hark, and Sam basically dispatched of everyone else. They gathered forces with every plantation that they liberated, and Nat Turner found himself 50 to 60 strong before they were captured in what we would call a downtown area or Main Street in Virginia. They were killed. Some of his slave army ran off scattering with fear. They were quickly dispatched, and I believe it was Will that was captured alive along with Nat. No real mention historically or through this confession or otherwise as to how many others may have survived the slave revolt. The original purpose of me writing this was to talk about the movie that I went to see in 2010, because not only did Nat Turner confess, and you can read that online, there's also a book written by William Stryer or Stryker? I can't remember which. William Stryer, I think it is. He wrote a book, a novel about the insurrection, about the slave revolt. And the book, although Bill is a white man, he was good friends with, it'll come to me later. But all being a white man, he said he wrote the book based on the confession and expanded on the confession based on what he knew of the institution of slavery. So he took the institution of slavery and the confession, married the two, and wrote a beautiful novel, I believe entitled The Confessions of Nat Turner. When I saw the book, on the streets of Brooklyn. A guy was selling books on the streets of Brooklyn. When I saw the book, I thought that was The Confession of Nat Turner. That it was this big, thick book. Turns out The Confession of Nat Turner is pretty small. It fit on about 4 pages. Normal font, about 12 pages, sheets of paper. The book is several hundred pages long, and it's a novel. And I wanted that novel converted into a movie. I'll read a little bit of what I wrote, just so I'm not trying to go all off memory and become, rambly. Ever since I read The Confession of Nat Turner, I've imagined the vivid images I see in my head on the silver screen. A film at times difficult to watch, shocking in its brutality, but awe-inspiring, watching an hour of humanizing moments in a young Nat Turner's life, because the book talks about his childhood. Nat Turner also talks about his childhood in his confession. This is a film, I imagine, that I pray will one day become reality. A film I find necessary to create an environment where epic filmmaking is part of our norm. For now, that film resides in my imagination. While The Book of Eli, White Chicks, and Precious are realities as part of my DVD collection. Putting Medea on these lists is becoming redundant, and White Chicks isn't really in my DVD collection. You may not have noticed all of those films were written and or directed by African Americans, making them all true African American films. One of them a damn good movie. Guess which one? It gives me hope that an environment can be created where there are real movie choices for us to see. That any movie the Nubian community asks for will get made. That there are Oscar nominations, big budget films, movies where the theater is quiet, and where adults can go see a movie without people acting like adults. That was a little judgy. What's really important here is that we see truth. Boys in the Hood was powerful in its truth. Not something we can make interesting if we tell it right. Just truth. Truth that's true, whether you want it to be or not. Whether it makes you laugh or not. Whether it makes any money or not. So here we are in the month of February. This is when I wrote this. Black History Month, and while being in existence for about 30 years or so, most African Americans I talk to are amazed to hear Nat Turner confessed his actions while awaiting trial and execution. 30 years of Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, and Thurgood Marshall. Is that your history in its totality? 28 days of history reminders, squeezed in between President's Day, Valentine's Day, and the occasional leap year. The next 30 years will include your African-American president, which, by the way, isn't history. That's a current event, but it's taught today to celebrate Black History Month. At this rate, your children's children will know nothing about the depth of their history. You don't think history is important, do you? America is last in education globally, math in particular. We're no longer last. At the time, we were last. China, India, the islands are all light years ahead of our kids, but because America's Caucasian students know that historically they have always won, they feel great and lead the world in positive self-image and confidence. True, proper history is important because true, proper history gives you what this Caucasian child has here. Number one in confidence, last in education. Number one in confidence, last in reading, writing, and arithmetic. Confidence here, actual intelligence down here. And with that 1/2 of 1% of the global population still manages to rule the world. Juneteenth is a wonderful holiday. And this is about the time I need my co-host to show up. Hopefully he shows up soon. But anyway, Juneteenth is a very important celebration for Black people. What's more important is not the festivals, not the vendors, not the food trucks, not the djembe, not the drum, not all of you walking around wearing Juneteenth t-shirts. Or, I'm guilty, t-shirts like mine. What's important is having a clear understanding of the celebration that ushered in the likes of the Black Wall Streets, that ushered in the greatest academic achievement the world has ever known. Less than 1% of the total Black American population could read. 99% of the African American population here was illiterate. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this was the fact on the eve of the Civil War. And in, I believe it was 30 years' time, you'd gotten that number up to somewhere in the 80 percentile. 80% of us could read. We've gone from complete illiterate to being able to read 80% of the population in just a few decades' time. I'll get the actual numbers and put them up. We were reminded not too long ago that China is 30,000 years old. China has always been for the Chinese. And while Chinese people have made great strides here in America, they could not have done what we did here because they're not from here. It's not their land. Spain was a colonizing nation. It was a superpower. And in Spain, they had Spaniards. And those Spaniards understood their culture, their history, and they were standing on their land. And they accomplished great things. No Spaniard could have done what they did standing in some other part of the world. So far as I can tell, we are the only people to stand on foreign soil and create vast economies, tremendous strides in academics and education, inventions, too many to name. Shout out to Elijah McCoy, the real McCoy. That old term, the real McCoy, that's Elijah McCoy, a Black man who had so many patents and so many inventions. Knockoffs didn't cut it. The knockoffs, nobody wanted. Nobody wanted your version of what Elijah created. I want the real McCoy. And you did all that on foreign soil. So it's not Juneteenth that I particularly focus on. When I think of Juneteenth, I think of what followed Juneteenth. You can look at the negative stats, right? 0.5% of all the wealth in the country belonged to the African American on the eve of the Civil War. Today, that number fluctuates anywhere from 0.5% to 1% of total wealth in the country. You've never gotten beyond 2.2. Ever. There was a point in time when we had captured 2%, the height. We had captured about 2% of the nation's wealth at the height. That was our high mark. So what the New Being newsletter hoped to accomplish was to usher in a Black stream that ran alongside America's mainstream. I did not want Black people entering into America's mainstream. You enter into America's mainstream as an employee. I wanted Black people to have their own stream that ran alongside mainstream, making mainstream less and less necessary as the years went on. So before Amazon became the global phenomenon that it is now, I spoke of creating a Black online website where Black people could buy Black products from Black producers exclusively. And you would lessen the need for Amazon. In 2010, Amazon was already worth billions. I mean, I'm not trying to say that Amazon wasn't a global phenomenon. It pretty much was by this point. It certainly wasn't then what it is today. We're coming up quickly on Prime Day, which is now a 5-day-long event. Y'all know where the idea for Prime Day came from? Came from Heat. It's a Robert De Niro movie with Al Pacino. Robert De Niro was a bank robber or a thief. I don't know if he just robbed banks, but he robbed things. And he had a driver, little Spanish guy, Terrio. Can't remember his first name now. In movies forever, he was the driver. And in a whimsical moment in the movie for some levity, right? Because it was a very serious film. He's sitting in the car with one of the associates, and I think he's reading a newspaper article or something, and he says, all the money, all the consumerism in America is done on Black Friday. What America needs to do is create a second holiday sometime in the summer to increase consumption, to increase shopping. Came from me. So now we have Prime Day, which is Black Friday in the summertime. Starts in June. Somebody heard that and thought, yeah, well, we don't need a holiday. We could just make something up. Prime Day. It's Black Friday in June, brought to you by the film Heat. But anyway, so the Nubian newsletter, that was its purpose, amongst other things, but primarily. And I'll read from the Nubian newsletter, and I'll pull stuff from it, every week from this point on. But what the Nubian newsletter sought out to do was to give Black people their marching orders. So I'll give you an example of something that I talked about while I was writing the Nubian newsletter, and what is probably in one of the articles in the newsletter. If you're a barbershop or a beauty supply store or a hair salon, and you're Black owned, look around at your space and see how much of your space is occupied by Black owned products. Look at the products you use to do hair. Look at the products you use to clean your clippers. Look at the products you use to keep the shop clean. Look at the products you use to slick the hair back or make it wavy or whatever it is that you're doing. Look at the products that you have on offer and how many of those are Black owned. And now effort yourself to find the Black version of whatever it is that you're using. You use shampoo and conditioner, find the local Black version of that. You use aftershave, find the local Black version of that. You're a beauty supply store and you have all these products in here, find the local Black version of at least 25% of the products here. In 2025, I would imagine you could make your shelves 100% Black owned, Black produced in 2025. Local, maybe not, but nationally, sure. There's plenty of national Black owned products out there. You could fill an entire store. Local products, maybe not. There are enough national brands out there, you can do that now. And thanks to Target, right? You've got plenty of products that you can do that with. So that's the Nubian newsletter as my co-host is making his entrance. Look. He's not even in front of the mic. He's not even in the mic. I see the mic. I tell you, he got a nicer mic than I do. I need to step my mic game up. I got better lighting than him, but he got a better mic. My mic look nice. Check one. My mic look nice. Check two. So while he's goofing off or whatever he's doing, let me just finish that thought. That was the purpose of the Nubian newsletter. I wrote somewhere in the newsletter that the Korean-owned beauty supply stores and the Indian-owned convenience stores and all the outside other ethnic groups that own stores in our neighborhood do not hire us to work in the store. They don't buy our food. They don't get our hair cut by us. They don't shop with us. They don't send their kids to our schools. They don't live in our neighborhoods. They take all the money that we give them for their products and services, mostly products, but in some cases services because of the, Korean nail salons and such. They take all that money and they go and they leave. They take all that money and they go someplace else and they pay property taxes on the other side of town. And they buy food on the other side of town. The Indian community has been able to create entire communities that look like India. And you can see this in Island, New Jersey. If you can't read or speak Hindu, you can't buy nothing there. Because you won't know what you're buying. All the language, all the signs, all the ingredients, all the labels, it's all in a language that you don't understand. And they've been able to do that by putting businesses in your neighborhood, taking all the money out and creating a community on the other side of the world. They've been able to take all your money out of that convenience store when you want to buy all your little weed wraps and your condoms and your salt and your sugar, your sodas, and all that poison. Well, maybe the condoms are necessary, but everything else is straight poison. And take all the money for the poison that he sells you, goes 30, 40, 50 miles away, sometimes more, and creates a community where the stores there sell life, wholesome food, clean food, their culture food. They buy and sell and eat their culture. And every now and again, you'll see a black person try to open up a black culture store in a black neighborhood, and he struggles because there's too much poison around. It's already been poisoned. The community has already been poisoned. How you gonna have African consciousness store in the neighborhood like this where you've been smoking marijuana for years, where you've been eating sugar for years, sodium for years, preservatives for years? How, Sway? How are you going to get somebody to now buy into life, buy into your culture when you've been poisoned like this? You ain't never seen an Indian person crack open a bag of potato chips in his own store and start munching away. You ain't never seen an Arab or Arab, as we like to call him, in his own store chugging down a Sprite or drinking a quart of water or eating a Slim Jim. I knew an Arab brother. They wouldn't sell. In New York, you could sell beer at your convenience store. They wouldn't sell it. And you could, of course, have a little small deli where you can cook food and stuff. And they had that. But they didn't serve any swine. They didn't even have tobacco because it was all considered haram. Haram basically meaning against God. And they had enough integrity to not sell it to you. Now, that could either be integrity that they refuse to sell it to you, or for their own selfish needs because they don't want to be responsible for selling it. Because it's equally bad in the Islamic tradition to sell these poisonous products as it is to consume them yourself. But you ain't never seen an Indian dude in a 7-Eleven drink a slushie. They bring their food from home. They don't go to your soul food restaurant. And that's the only restaurants we ever have, are soul food restaurants. They ain't going in there. They take all that money and they leave. They don't hire you. They have their kids in there. They have their wife in there. They ain't got no kids in there. They ain't got no black people working in them stores. So to summarize, as my co-host finally arrives and shows his face, you have not been able to stock the shelves. Your job as a black person in a black neighborhood with these stores has only been to clear the shelves. You clear the shelves. You don't stock those shelves. You ain't got none of your black products on the shelves, and none of these Indian, Korean, Chinese-owned businesses, none of your products exist there.
Wow.
Chinese-made products exist there. They showed you that in the TikTok. He said, this is my apartment. Everything in here made from China. Nothing in here made from America. And I got everything I need. And you go into listen, you could remove all the black-owned products from the entire United States, and the United States would not miss a beat. It's not needed. It's not necessary. It's not required. You have nothing that this nation needs to function.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, you're passing.
They got basketball.
Where would we be without
They got basketball?
But peanut butter is a long gone thing. It's owned by Jiffy. There is no, what's his name? Carter. What's the guy who invented peanut butter?
Jefferson Carter?
Carver, whatever his name is. But there's no black-owned peanut butter made. He invented peanut butter and then Jiffy took it. Wayne Bird Bell, ladies and gentlemen.
How are you guys doing?
Wayne Bird Bell is in the building.
Yes, I am. I am that. That is he, and he is I. What's up? What is going on? I hear you. You had a solid rant there, because that's not even a rant. That's really some real spill there. There is no black-owned nothing around here, boy. Nothing. We don't create nothing but mayhem right about now. If we create a new music genre later on, it'll be gone. It'll be stolen.
Yo, man, I'm not doing this.
It'll be gone.
Yo, man. All right. You want to talk music?
No, I'm not talking music. I'm just saying it's just hit.
No. I know.
It's gone.
But let's make something clear about the music thing. Like they do with everything else. Your music is jungle music. It's colored music. It's bad. It's bad. And they make it bad to the point where we say, well, we can't make no money with this music because the mainstream white audience won't participate. So then we step away from that genre, and then they step in with the same exact genre and start selling the music.
No, it's a little bit more trickier than that. I mean, we had a little piece of my homegirl Stephanie Mills saying it. What they do is they just promote the white version more than the black version. That's how they do it. They just promote it. Yeah. That's the new wave. Once upon a time, it was that way.
Yeah, that's the new wave.
You know what I mean? But now they just, and you hear record companies telling these guys, don't talk about love. That ain't, talk about shake that ass, pop that twat. That's what they want you to, sing about. And then you get Justin Bieber or Adele or Sam Smith or Justin Timberlake or whoever. Girl, I love you. And then it's a hit.
Yeah. The most beautiful love music ever written is pretty much almost, there's been a few outliers with whites writing some pretty good, love songs. But all the greatest love songs by us.
White people don't fuck the slow jams. Let's make it clear. They don't fuck the slow jams. Black people do. No fucking music. And I know.
Well, what what is Melissa prefer?
No.
Music or no music?
Music.
Because she's been indoctrinated.
It's music. She want to hear Genuine. So ancient.
What about make something clear to people calling me? What about her grandma?
Who, her grandma?
Yeah.
Her grandma, old Italian lady, nah. Her mama,
music?
Yeah, music. Because her mama dated a black guy before she passed.
So, okay, so mama listening, so her mother listening to Teddy Pendergrass.
Yeah, she listened to Teddy.
Her grandmother, her grandma's out on that. No music. Like the Dave Chappelle skit. Turn off the R&B music. I was going to mess with you because I was listening to Sirius Radio XM, whatever it's called. I think it's called Sirius XM Radio. Listen to an oldie station. Some of the songs, they go way back. Sometimes they go way back. And some of the songs, I was like, yo, what is this? This sounds like doo-wop. Black dude.
Yeah. They took it all, bro. They took it all. They took it all.
So I was going to play some songs and see if you could tell me, because I wouldn't know either. Tell me, black guy?
White guy.
White guy. Yeah. Black guy, white guy.
Yeah.
But I got to mix it up.
Yeah, you got to mix it up really good. You know what I mean? But it's you can tell by the note. If they hit any kind of note, you'll tell.
Right, the struggle notes.
The notes. If one is too happy, white.
Right. Yeah.
Black. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. Tina, I don't know if it's a quote or not, but in the movie they made about Tina, she talked about, I don't want to do no more of them sad songs I was doing with Ike, But you listen to Donny Hathaway and all them cats, man, like that sad music, there's a feeling, like, I don't know, there's something that just, the older you get,
it hits.
You start to get moved more by things that you see. Well, if you see somebody struggling, you can be moved by things that you see the older you get or that you hear. And the music, the sad music, from that generation of long gone.
No, it hits hard. It hits
Music.
hard. It hits real hard. You actually can't duplicate it. The soul is not there, if you understand. You know what I mean? You can't duplicate that. People can try to right about now, but your soul is empty. you're doing it for a check. You're not doing it for a feeling to move people. You're doing it because, hey, this might sell a record. You know what I mean? You're not doing it because of pain. I was listening to now, not to really divert from, good old fashioned soul music, but I was listening to some hip hop. It was Jay-Z, Beanie Siegel, and Scarface. And it was called you know which song I'm talking about. And
yeah, the one where he talks about his boy's son dying.
And that happened.
Yeah, that
happened. Yeah. He had a rhyme written, and then he scratched that, and he written that rhyme on spot. Forget about Jigga Man rhyme, because Jigga Man rhyme was slick, and Beanie Siegel rhyme was slick too. But you felt my man.
It was
slick.
Yeah, I mean Scarface stole the show. Yeah, it was slick, but Scarface stole the show.
He was like,
and if you listen to it now,
it's still
like you have recently. Yeah, now you're moved.
And then you heard the story behind it, and you're like, that was really real, because we were young, we just thought he just written a rhyme. No, that happened. I got a call from one of my niggas. He in the studio rhyming with Jig. I got a call from one of my niggas. So even in the rap world, when pain, you can get it through this microphone here, through the eardrum into the heart. You can get it. You can get it. But
yeah, you can get it. I don't know why we're throwing that away with both hands like we are. Partly for the reasons you're talking about, just the money.
No soul.
All that, easier to sell and all of that. That's why, there's no big in my house. Big's not allowed. You can listen to Tupac until you're blue in the face. But
in the end,
my daughter tried to buy a big shirt.
Ooh. You can't have
that. No, put that back. Can't have that.
All right. I love Big and everything. Is Big in my home like that? No, not really. Not really. Not even Tupac. None of them. I was still, sad to say, I'm still Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, that stuff, Brand Nubian. I'm still that stuff. I still hold on to that. EPMD, I hold on to that. Don't get me wrong, I like Big. I'll recite some of his rhymes. But I don't know, when I hear Slow Down Baby, and EPMD stuff, I'm moved. I'm more moved. I'm more moved.
Yeah, it's got a bop. I mean,
Heavy D.
But look, I mean, the music you grow up on, the soundtrack to your life is always going to be more powerful than even in the same genre.
Yeah.
It's still not going to be the same. Like I enjoy J. Cole's music, but it's going to be 10, 15 years before I could really listen to it and be like, okay. Yeah.
No, I can listen to him, man, because he really paints a nice picture. So I appreciate that. I mean, I really do appreciate that.
Yeah.
I really do.
So what's this nonsense you sent?
Oh man. That ain't
interviewing a Mexican.
Well, here's how it works. I'm in the schools, maybe some of you guys schools out there probably ain't doing this, but around our way, what they're doing is they want the kids to snitch on their family members indirectly with school assignment. You know what I mean? As you sent it, you see it, the kid's name and whom he or she is interviewing, and the relations to said person. And then it goes on from there. How you like being in this country? When were you? you got your papers? In so many words. How you feel about America when you first landed? Was the trip worth it? And all that slick jargon inside of the literature. I was just shaking my head like, wow. I let my mom read it. My mother was like, "Oi, you better watch your kid. You're gonna take your kid." I said, "Mom, my son got a good old-fashioned slave name. It ain't Rodriguez. It ain't Perez. It's a good old-fashioned down south old slave name. So we're cool. But she was like, well, your kids are. I said, you do got a point there. Right. I said, you got a point there.
Right.
But they speak English.
Yeah, your kids are 10.
They speak English. They waffle color. They speak English. Yeah, they waffle color for real. Yeah. Lego my kids, And it's troubling because the times now you can kind of see where this is going. You know exactly where it's going. It's going there. They blocked off Handy Street the other day. Somebody was telling me blocked off Handy Street to French Street, rounding up.
This is little Mexico.
Tijuana over here.
Right, down in New Brunswick, New Jersey.
Hey,
well,
to sidebar to this, got a Mexican homeboy. He went to Mexico. Out of the blue, you seen a guy over there doing something, over there selling something. He said, hey, what's up, man? Yeah. He said, where you from? He said, I'm over there from the States. He said, yeah, I used to live in New Brunswick. He found a Mexican that was in New Brunswick on French Street in Mexico. Come on. Come on.
Damn.
This.
And the population there is about as high
as giraffe pussy.
As it, outside of the bordering states, California and all of that. I would imagine that the Mexican population in New Brunswick, New Jersey has got to be as high a place as anywhere. Just the density of it by percentage, right? You might be looking at a 59, 60.
They rotate.
Mexican population.
They rotate. They come here, sit here 5 years, get a little weak, a little hot. Boom. They go somewhere else. So they bounce from Maryland, PA. Not too much of.
Yeah, I've heard them sometimes.
Yeah, they travel.
Yeah, they
gotta move around.
Stay light.
Just drawers moving. And socks.
Keep your head on the swivel.
Drawers and socks. That's it.
Well, I don't want to get too serious, but I always tell people, man, human behavior is the easiest thing in the world to predict. And so it was predictable to me. If you're walking around with no ID, snatching people up, get in the truck, cuff them up, put them in the back, we bouncing, and you got all these news reports saying, well, they didn't have identification, they didn't identify themselves, the car was unmarked, everybody wearing different colors. You got one guy wearing black, one guy wearing green, one guy wearing yellow. It's like, well, who are these dudes, man? This is like a motley crew.
Yeah.
It was, to me, just a matter of time before somebody said, well, if you can get away with that, I can walk around, play cop, and get access to all kinds of stuff. So if I want to arrest, I can arrest. If I want to shoot, I can shoot. And if I want to go to Minnesota and whack, 2 congressmen or state legislators, then yeah, I can do that
allegedly.
Too. And so that's what went down over the weekend.
That's crazy.
Like you.
You paused, brother. Oh, and it's not my end, but you paused. You at the part where you rubbing your stomach like this. Oh man, you paused. I hears nothing, not a thing. Oh, he's gone. Oh, it's just me. That's just me. It's just Birdie. All alone in this thing called the Way Left Podcast. Now, you see, this is all the technical difficulties that we got to try to work out here. It's tough. It's really tough. It's tough to shoot a podcast like this. And either sometimes my end, it's not working. And right about now, it's his end that's not working. What is this? What is going on? Do you guys know what's going on? I don't know. It's very troublesome. Very troublesome, Daniel-san. Oh, very troublesome. We must fight. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to stop this recording. And then I'm going to jump back on.